Nerdiest Prime.
Let's do this.
Hi, and welcome to Nerdiest Prime. We're back to review a time-traveling extravaganza. I'm so excited to be talking about Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. What did you guys think about this?
I loved that Kirk was in an Indiana Jones movie. It was great.
I'm confused by all the time travel I've watched this week.
I know, it's too much time travel.
Yeah, so we're doing the episode 3 of season 2 of Strange New Worlds called Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow. And I will say officially that this is the most Canadian Star Trek episode ever. And let's start with our first instructions.
You know, I think you should just start over again.
No, this is great. And let's start with Jenny. First impression, Jenny.
Me again. Okay. You know what? Yeah, I loved this episode. I found it to be very entertaining, but I also found it had a lot of heart. And I liked that there was a mystery. And it felt like a Star Trek, it was just very Star Trek time travel, like it worked.
Very good, very concise. I like
Thank
that.
you.
Let's go with Alan.
I love this one too. I didn't think I was gonna at first, and then the episode just kept happening, and I was enjoying it more and more and more. And it was all good. It was all good. I'm sure Namir won't like it, but I did.
Okay, let's hear it from Namir. The suspense is killing me.
You think so little of me. I mean, I didn't love it. But I did like it, like a soft like. So there are things that I liked about it and things I didn't like about it. I mean, it was set in Toronto and I live in Toronto, so half the watching the show was like, oh, I recognize that place. Oh, look, that's where I work. Oh, I was there yesterday. You know, so that was kind of fun. But I do have some issues with it. But it's okay. I liked it.
I don't know how I felt about it. I liked some things about it, but it's kind of like down the middle for me. And I don't like Toronto at all, so that made me immediately hate the
I'm no fan of Toronto either, but you know.
It was okay. Let's start the review by talking about the most obvious thing, which is that they go back in time. They're in an alleyway, and I'm like, oh, what American city is this going to be that Toronto's going to be pretending? Will it pretend to be Chicago? Will it pretend to be New York? Will it pretend to be Los Angeles? Let's see. And then they went into the plaza, and she's like, we are in Toronto, one of the largest Canadian city. I'm like, what's going on? What? And then you can see in the background Toronto Bridge opening, and there's all these, and I'm like, oh my God, they're doing this. They're doing the Toronto episode. So, how do you guys feel about this being the most Canadian Star Trek episode ever? Because I think there's only been like 5 Canadian references in Star Trek.
Not a lot, yeah.
I could only think of 2 actually when I thought about it, but
what are the 2?
Well, I knew the Eddington's Lucky Looney from Deep Space Nine, and when that ensign confuses Riker's home on Earth as being Canada when it's actually Alaska. That's the only 2 times I remember Canada being.
But sir, you're forgetting the Quadrilaterally in the Troublesome Tribbles that comes from Canada.
I am forgetting about that, I guess. I did not remember that, no.
Canadian wheat.
Oh my God.
You have trumped my knowledge.
Well done.
Thank you. You know, I noticed when it was Canada in something for sure. Yeah, so how do we feel about this being the most Canadian episode? Let's start with Alan. Alan, look, is ready to go.
I liked it, because we get ignored a lot on the world stage when it comes to movies and TV. Like, they like to use us for stand-ins for every other major city in North America, but or the U.S. But yeah, we never get to be ourselves, so that was cool. And I like how they made a little joke of it too, where Kirk thinks it's New York. It's like, oh, we landed in New York, and it's like, no, it's Toronto.
I very much enjoyed it happening. I mean, Canada aside, the fact that it wasn't just an American city, with Star Trek being so, tending to be so like America centric. It was just nice to just push it a little north, it's not that far. Yeah, I really like that. I was like, oh, the lake view, what? That's amazing. Yeah, that was just oh God, words. I really thought it was nice. It was a nice change of pace. And it was also just because they filmed there, and clearly I think a lot of them enjoy the city and enjoy filming there. And I think that's kind of a nice little extra, kind of gift to the city that they've spent, or that they're spending time in.
So Namir, I really want to hear from you because it's your city.
Yeah, it was nice to see Toronto, but like I said, it was totally distracting because I recognized like almost every place where they were at. Like literally when they first entered into the square, the building where I work is right behind there, and I could see it. And I was like, oh, that's actually where I work. I was there all the time. And then they go into the Eaton Center. It's like, that's the Root store, which I was in, last week. So I had to watch it again because, I was playing the game where I was like, can we recognize where all these locations were? So that was actually kind of fun. But it was nice to kind of see, the city on TV, right? Because there's a lot of great locations in the city, and they used a lot of them, right? They used like the ROM, the giant crystal thing that's supposed to be a museum, and then they used the there was the what was it called? It's like the music center where the last scene happened. So all these great places, and we saw a little bit of it last season as well with Ontario Place, but this was cool. They kind of doubled down on it. But again, I did find it really distracting, which I think actually, because it was shot in Toronto, I probably liked this episode way more than I would have if it was shot in like, Nova Scotia or Chicago or something.
Star Trek hasn't really went anywhere else on Earth. Like I think they've been to what, Paris maybe, and London, I think, in the new Kelvin movies. But I really don't think that they really done much globetrotting. Like never been to Tokyo or Moscow or Cairo or anywhere anywhere exotic.
Well, Picard was in where, LA?
Yeah.
They're always just in America.
Yeah, they're literally just in the backyard. Like, where are we shooting? Okay, that's where we're setting this place, which is what happened here. They shoot in Toronto and Mississauga, so like, well, I guess we're using Toronto.
I'm just surprised that nobody mentioned that Captain Kirk was eating poutine.
But I like that scene because it kind of sounded like he knew about poutine, but it didn't have gravy where he was from. Like he's like, this poutine has gravy. Or like, is yours just cheese fries where you're from?
Yeah, it's just fries with ketchup. That's what it is. Unless you're in Holland, then it's fries with mayonnaise.
And did you ever go to the Lakeside Cafe?
The Lakeview Cafe? I don't think that exists. I don't think
that's
real.
I thought it is. I thought it's like where it said like established like 1930 something. I think it's like actually. I don't know why I have this in my brain.
Yeah, you could be right. Let's just Google it.
You can Google it right now.
While you Google, I remembered another Canada reference from TNG, from Contagion, the episode with the Iconians and the like doorway. It showed Toronto City Hall was one of the places.
I wanted them to go to Toronto City Hall and then go, hey.
I know Lucas always said that every time we've watched that episode together, and because we watched it a few times now, I think. And I'm like, they don't really say it's Toronto. It's just like random planet.
It is Toronto, though.
Technically, I guess it is shown.
It's a futuristic city.
Generic futuristic building.
You're absolutely right, Jenny. It does exist.
And
Yes.
where is it?
Honestly I wasn't sure if I'd like made it up. Yeah, where is it?
Well, there's a couple. There's one, I think it's on College.
I have a feeling I ate there after a bar night. And because I think that's why I have it in my head, but I'm a little fuzzy on the details.
But you weren't there when the bridge exploded.
I wasn't really sure if anybody, and I don't know if anybody else knows, what year they were supposed to be in Toronto. It was supposed to be like present day, a little bit in the future, a little bit in the past. I wasn't really.
Well, I think it's deliberately vague so they'd never have to say that Khan existed in 2027 or something like that again, you know, because they've had so much problems with him being from 1996.
Yeah, but it's definitely post 1996, right? Like I think it's set
Oh yeah,
now,
they
right?
said it's like
it's,
mid 21st century, so it could be like 2040, 2050. Yeah.
The thing with the bridge kind of sets it up that it could be a couple of years from now, like that
it's
doesn't exist,
yeah,
but
it's like the near future.
but then again, maybe the timeline's all kind of
So
squidgy.
how do we feel about it in terms of being a time travel episode? Let's hear from Namir first, since he always goes last.
How did I feel about being a time travel episode? I thought it was fine. I think they did it because they wanted to fix the Khan sort of mismatch, right? Like World War III being so early, and they're like, well, we have to do something about this. I didn't really think they needed to, but you know, because it's just one of those things that everybody's just kind of accepted, but they did, and it was all right. So I think it was fine. I think some of the things that were bothering me weren't necessarily about the time travel aspect of the whole thing. I think that kind of worked. It was more about like, you know, reactions to La'an suddenly ending up on the bridge of this ship, and they don't know who she is, but they're like, okay, I guess you're fine. You could, you know, instead of throwing her in the brig, which they probably should have done. And you know, like when the time cop first appeared on the ship on the Enterprise in La'an's timeline, he's like shot, but La'an doesn't call medical, or she doesn't call security, like she doesn't do her job. She's just kind of like, that looks like a bullet hole, you know, and then kind of goes on from there. So I didn't really have a problem with the time travel. I thought that was fine. Time travel episodes are usually pretty fun. So I think they you know, they did it fairly well. But it's all the other stuff.
I'm gonna like pull the Jenny and the Lucas thing to counter Namir's argument, is that I didn't care about those details. They did not affect they didn't. Well, you would use it there, and Lucas used it in the past. Was like, I don't care. I had a good time. I'm like, I'm just going with it. But no, I mean, I thought it was a clever use to get the timeline straightened out based on what we have. I feel like now I'm also in Lucas's camp, where we're in a reboot now. This is a new timeline. This does not go along with TOS now, with the Gorn, with the Khan. Like it's all can be its own thing now in my head, and I don't care because they fucked up the timeline, and now it's all its own thing. So they can kill Spock, they can kill a horror, they can kill anybody now. Did I say it right? I know you guys make fun of my pronunciation, but anyway.
Okay, but let me just say, you know, like I don't, you know, I know I kind of like pick up on these little details and I nitpick a little bit, but I do that because it annoys me, because this is a good episode, but it could have been great, right? Like I always feel like, oh, if they just did these other things, it could have really made a solid episode that I would go back and rewatch. I'm never going to rewatch any of these episodes, right? Like I know that. The only one maybe I'll rewatch is Memento Mori because it's so good. But none of these
have. Some of them I've watched a few times.
Right. So, but I'm not, right? Because like for me to rewatch something, there's always got to be little moments that I'm like, oh, that's super cool. Oh, that's so great. And part of that is doing the little things that make that world feel realistic, right? It's doing the little things that makes me feel as if La'an is actually good at her job, right? And I say that a lot, right? Like Star Trek is about really competent people being really good at their jobs and, you know, engaging in adventures at the same time, right? Like I like watching people be smart. And this show never does that for me. They're never smart in this show. It drives me nuts. And it's like, it's those little things, right? Like call medical. There's a guy that just appeared out of nowhere dressed in 21st century clothing with a giant bullet hole, you know? Like, do the thing that you're trained to do. So it's those little things that bother me. And I think if they did that, then it would take this stuff to just like, okay, it's pretty good. I had a good time, to that's great. I'm going to watch it again. So that's why I always get so annoyed, because it's so close, but it never quite gets there.
But you realize in the original series, which establishes everything, McCoy pretty much 90% of the time doesn't do anything to help revive anyone he finds dead or critically injured. So what's your argument?
Yeah, but
he's dead, Jim, and then
Except in Star Trek 6.
Oh yeah, he does put up a good effort there. But yeah. Well, that's why I say 90% of the time. You know, he saved Spock, he tried to save Gorka and all that, but you know.
I know, but it's like an exception. Everybody else is always.
Okay, I'm just gonna get us back on track, because we're way off in the field. The subject
is not
is
off
time
field. What are you
travel.
talking about?
Anyway, to go back to the time travel thing, I thought it was a clever way to correct everything. We're now a reboot, and I also thought we had a good story with La'an. There was a good character-driven story there. I actually didn't miss most of the cast in this. I thought Kirk and La'an had such good chemistry that I was enjoying their adventure, and I didn't need the rest of the crew for it at all. So, but those moments with Pelia were great too. So,
I think as a time travel story, it didn't blow my socks off. It wasn't like a Star Trek 4 level or past tense level. You know, it wasn't maybe even like time
Zero?
Times Arrow. It was like, but it was pretty good.
Yeah.
It was fine, and we've seen it a lot, and it's always kind of the same shenanigans of like figuring out like, where are we and what's going on, and now we have to pretend that we're married, and then that's going to lead into maybe something interesting, a little romance, which we're going to talk about. But yeah, it was just fine, and the time cops are okay when they're a joke. So the time cops, like in Trials and Tribulations, they come in, they're like, we're here to investigate the time travel. And I think that's fine. When it gets into, I forget if they're also time cops, but the other time guys like that were in Voyager, and what are they called?
Department of Temporal Investigations or something like that.
No, those are the guys in Deep Space Nine. But what are the guys?
well, I think they were just Starfleet. It was like 29th century because they had time ships. They weren't really a division or anything. I think they were just Starfleet from the 29th century.
And then there was that whole time thing with in Enterprise. I think it's like time travel episodes are nice when they're like, it's like a little condiment to Star Trek, but they can't be the whole meal. If you do it too much. What? Okay, let's talk about Captain Kirk is back, and how do we feel about Captain Kirk this time? Because now this is the second time we're seeing Captain Kirk, and he's again in the alternate timeline time episode and a time travel episode. So how do we feel about Captain Kirk and Captain Pike being absent for the third episode in a row?
I mean, Captain Pike being absent is a like outside of it's Anson Mount had a baby coming, and the baby showed up at the beginning of filming, and they had to sort of work around that. Brand new baby, come on, man. Anyway, but I thought, yeah, I mean, considering that we haven't seen him a lot, I don't know. Everybody loves him so much. He's so charming. He's gonna have us back in 5 minutes of showing up in his apron in the next episode. You know what I mean? Like, it's like we're eating out of his hands, to use another food reference. But in terms of, he's got us eating out of his hands. Sorry. But in terms of Paul Wesley, I like his Kirk. He is physically very angular. I have a really hard time with him physically. I like Chris Pine because he's like all round. Everything's round, you know, like, and
Kirk should be round. That's for sure.
Kirk is like made of circles. Like he's just, and there's something about Paul Wesley that he's like so angular in his nose, and and there's nothing wrong with that. It's just there's something like visually off about him. But I think I'm enjoying his like, he's finding the character, and I think it's working. And I thought the chemistry with the two of them was great.
Alrighty then. Let's hear from.
I wouldn't go that far, but yeah.
Let's hear from Namir. What is Namir think?
Yeah, I don't like him.
I could tell from his disdain on his face when Jenny was talking about him.
I think he's a fine actor. They had chemistry, which was good, but I wasn't watching Kirk, the character, right? I was watching, like, to me, he reminded me of Jellicoe. He looked like Ronnie Cox. Right? And so I was like, oh, that's Jellicoe when he was young. And I can't, so I don't see him as Kirk. But the actor and La'an had chemistry. He was fine. He was fun to watch. I enjoyed that, but he was definitely not Kirk, like, on any level for me. It just wasn't. And you're right, Jenny. Like Chris Pine made Kirk his own, but he just kind of fit into that role, right? Because he's got that giant head, and he's kind of like, he's got that swagger, And
it's sort of like, there's something about the giant head, and it, like, even just sort of the way it, like, it's just, there's this like looseness to Kirk that, so I don't know, like it's.
Yeah, it wobbles around, right? Like he sits the way he sits in the captain's chair because he's got to support that giant head, right? He needs the extra leverage. But you don't get that sense from what's his name? Paul Wesley? Is that his name? Yeah. I don't get that from Paul Wesley, and so I'm having trouble with it. But it was okay. Like I said, that romance worked surprisingly. La'an is great, and so they definitely had chemistry. But he's not Kirk for me.
Alrighty then. Let's hear from Alan.
Okay, first of all, you can't use the same joke twice.
Lucas can. He's a joke murderer. I'm just gonna hatchet this thing to death. No, I have no problem with him. I think I agree that I have a hard time buying him as Kirk. I enjoy him. I enjoy the performance. I think he's a good actor and he has great chemistry. I was noticing how I was enjoying their chemistry during the car chase and all this that was going on. It was like everything I would want to see from Picard last season, but everything fell flat. Like Raffi and Seven had no chemistry, and it's like everything was kind of just weak all around. And it's like, oh, this is the kind of stuff, hijinks I would have wanted to see when they were back in the 2024 in Picard. But those actors just didn't. The script sucked, or the actors weren't jiving. I don't know what was going on, but this was fun and I enjoyed it. But I do feel like if this guy was like anybody else, like even like another character, like say Commodore Decker from the Doomsday Machine or something, like he could be any well-known captain from the original series. But being Kirk, it's still hard to see him in that role. But I don't hold it against him or anything. I know everybody's like, this guy sucks or whatever it is, Kirk. But I think he's fine. But I do think creatively it would have been good if they had just made him somebody else, because he doesn't need to be Kirk. Like, this doesn't need to be anybody in particular, but it could be any other Starfleet officer and it'd be fine. But
was that your imitation of Namir? Oh,
What was that?
that was like Kirk sucks.
I never said. This is my imitation of you. This scene was like a meal. It was like a tasty meal, and it dripped all over my face. It was so good.
But yeah, so and now I have nothing to say about Captain Jim Carrey. So because you guys have said it all for me, they're together. They're a nacho and salsa. They're meant to be together. Unfortunately, he ended up dead.
Mm-hmm.
Dead salsa.
Oh, yeah.
That shocked me. I was like, because I remember Namir said last season, like, why didn't he kill Kirk? They should have killed Kirk. And then they did it in this episode. I'm like, and it stuck. I was like, there's no way he died that easy. He's like, you're bluffing, and bang, he's dead. I was like, really? I was like, oh, he actually is dead. That's interesting. I was like, because I thought he would like come back and be like, oh, I'm still alive and I'm here to shoot the bad guy in the back or something, yeah. But yeah.
Yeah, but he's not actually dead. He's just dead in that time.
Well, no, but they didn't kill him in that other alternate future either when they could have. But here they actually did it, and they did it really quick, and like there wasn't really. It was like kind of shocking, even though it didn't matter because it's an alternate Kirk. But I was still surprised. I was shocked that they killed him, and they killed him that easily, and it stuck.
So how does everybody feel about the plot? And so the plot is this basic. There's a conspiracy theory thing going on where they're trying to like change the timeline, and there's the Romulans and all this sort of stuff. And there's that character who's supposed to be originally kind of the comic relief nerd of the episode that turns out to be like the antagonist.
Mm-hmm.
So how do we feel about all that situation?
Given the like Star Trek episode time travel format, I felt like it worked. I mean, there was, it was a reason it was happening. It made sense that it was the Romulans, especially the fact that the Romulans are such a kind of mystery at this point for them. And I don't know. I mean, I think it could have been more, but I'm very satisfied with the explanation. I mean, like people are always messing around with time in Star Trek, right? Like everybody's got an angle, like that's why they've got all these investigative bodies to deal with it, because people are always trying to screw up the timeline. So I think it made sense. I mean, there was no sort of explanation as to why it had to. Oh no, there was kind of. Ooh, that's interesting. Sorry. So I'm just putting that together.
Just remember what I saw.
Why it would be Lon, why he came to her specifically, because really she would be kind of the only person who
could use the scanner.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure maybe somebody else could have figured out a different way to get in, but I don't know.
We're going to talk about Khan in a second and all that sort of stuff. But I just felt like it was weird that they're trying to correct this this thing that in the original series, Khan took over the world in 1992, and there was a whole world war between 1992 and 1996, and then he escaped in 1996, and obviously that didn't happen. And I feel like Voyager's Future's End had a perfect opportunity to fix it, because they went back to Los Angeles in 1996, and they could have said, we went back in time and we screwed everything up, and that's why there's no Khan. So they're trying to do it here 25 years later, and I don't really know if I really buy this whole explanation where like the Romulan spies like, I've been trying to do this my whole life, and it just keeps coming back, and now it's 2027, I'm still at it. So
I mean, honestly, if they're gonna give it a shove, like I'm not married to it. I liked the creative explanation for it. I liked that, especially considering that there are these other kind of weird anomalies in the timeline, like you say, with, Voyager going back to a 1996 that's like, fine, yeah.
Well, time travel is always so weird in Star Trek that you just kind of have to let it go, right? Like there's so many episodes, none of it's gonna like match. It's not gonna make any sense. I appreciate that they're trying, and I thought they did fine. They're like, there's certain events that happen no matter what you do, like canon events, and this is one of them. And I think they even mentioned something like that in Picard as well. So I'm okay with it. Like I didn't think they needed to do it. And I think the the reveal of Khan being like this, like a little kid. I kind of wish they had done something more with that. So I had no problem with the time travel stuff. It's just like one of those things, right? They're like, okay, they're going to do a time travel episode. You just have to take a lot of it at face value because it's like the MacGuffin in the episode, right? It's just the thing that drives the story and doesn't make any sense. So I was able to let that go. It's fine.
Okay, that's great that you could let this go. The whole crux of the episode. Okay, let's hear from Ellen.
There's a couple things that I thought were kind of funny. Was that they come back and Kirk's like, so where do we begin? What do you think we need to do? Where are we? When are we? And then so all of a sudden he's like, oh yeah, this is where they blow up that bridge and it starts the Romulan invasion. It's the Romulan first strike. I'm like, really? That's something you wouldn't have realized when you realize that you landed in Toronto at this time, you see that this bridge is there. And it's like, none of this would. It's like it takes him like a day to remember. It's like, oh yeah. It's like, this is where our war started. You think you would have known right away that this is what he was there, what they were there to do. Like it was going to be something to do with this bombing or whatever. But that's fine. Again, I let it go.
So let's talk about this bridge. So this bridge is what? It's like a giant bridge that's supposed to take you from Toronto all the way to the United States across Lake Ontario.
I have no idea.
I saw somebody say something that was like the Toronto Niagara something.
That's why I'm surprised the American fans haven't been screaming about it, because it is heavily implied that, well, I mean, there when she confronts the cops when arresting Kirk, it's like, he's an American, you're persecuting him for becoming. I'm like, they're basically implying that America's like this fascist state, that we're at odds with Canada. This bridge is some sort of attempt at reconciliation between the two countries. Did nobody got any of that?
I got the international cooperation thing, but yeah,
because she's basically, you're persecuting an American citizen who's here, or as a refugee or something or whatever, and then the cops back off. They're like, oh, we don't want to be a viral video or whatever. I was like, I felt like they were implying that America was basically a fascist state now with like Trump, in power or whatever.
That's interesting. I totally did not.
You should rewatch that because I'm pretty sure they're basically saying America's awful to be in, and Canada's like a safe haven for American citizens. And then this bridge is like a symbol to unify the two former friends again.
Oh, that's interesting. Because I was watching it and I was like, does that bridge just go to Center Island? Like how, like. I'm
pretty sure that's what they were going for, because I was like, oh man. There's going to be some Americans screaming about this, like, oh, Trek's too woke or whatever. There's, they're anti-Republican, and all that. So,
no, that's funny. Yeah, that makes sense. So it probably goes all the way to
Rochester. It's going to go to Rochester, New York.
I felt a little embarrassed of myself that I was questioning, is this bridge real?
I'm like,
I know. I had the same thought at first. I was like, is this? I know I just lived in Toronto a few years, but
this is the trivia. Who lives in Toronto? Who doesn't?
Yeah. I was like, I've been to Toronto twice in my life, so, it's like, come on.
Okay, let's talk about Khan. Khan, Noonien Singh. Khan! So, how do we feel about this? Wow. Jenny is so excited. Namir is not, and Namir and Alan's face is really hard to read right now. Oh, I don't know. Let's go with Namir. I want to start with Namir.
Yeah, okay, so he's like not an important part of the episode, right? And it was just kind of like obvious. I hated the way that they wrote Khan on his door. It's like they weren't trying to hide it at all. It's like in crayon they wrote Khan.
Should have had it backwards H. It's like, oh, a preschooler wrote this.
Yeah, exactly. And then and then I was like, oh, it's gonna be Khan. This is gonna be really awesome. Because, we don't really see Khan when he's young. There's only two versions of Khan, I guess, right? And then they go in, he's just some little kid, right? He's not even a little kid that's like special or smart in any way, right? Like I was hoping for like a kid that was kind of like Seven from the Stranger Things without the psychic powers, but like really competent, and and it just didn't pan out that way, right? They could have done so much more with that. Like I wanted to see like a creepy ass kid that was like manipulating line. No, like just somebody that was clearly smart, somebody that was clearly like super intelligent in like a 9-year-old body. But it wasn't that. It was just like, are you here to kill me? And she was like, nah. He was like, okay, And so it felt like a really missed opportunity for me.
Yeah, I just felt like that kid should have had a Ricardo Montalban accent. That was what was disappointing.
I was just gonna say about Khan is this was another scene where, because I want to do a rewrite last season for the doctor's daughter when she, because I thought that ending was stupid and it could have been so much more powerful. And this is another scene where I was like, this is a missed opportunity, because I felt like her showing him mercy, showing this kid mercy and being kind to him, where he might be in like some sort of cold controlled environment where he's like abused or drilled to be a certain way, her being kind and compassionate to him and merciful would like stick with him, and maybe he would grow up and he would not become a genetic, superior Superman dictator, a genocidal maniac. And somebody might take his place or whatever from that group and become that dictator that Khan was. But if Khan didn't become that dictator, that would remove the stigma from her last name that she's carried with her through her whole life and career. And I thought that would have been a good resolution, that her showing him kindness and compassion and being a shoulder he could, someone he could be comfortable with, would influence him to be a better person, and therefore she wouldn't have to carry that weight anymore. And when she returned to her time, history might have been rewritten a little, different dictator rose up and did the same things, but she was free of that stigma. So I thought that would have been nice, but they didn't go that route.
It's almost like this. I just realized that this episode is like a personification or an example of the famous, like, would you go back in time and kill baby Hitler? What would you do? And it's basically, the episode is like, and she meets baby Hitler and goes like, I don't want no, you're fine, it's fine.
Yeah, but if she killed baby Hitler, then she wouldn't exist anymore, right? That's the paradox. So she can't kill baby Hitler because she's a Hitler.
But do you think she thinks she's selfish for having made that choice?
I think she thought that she couldn't change the past and that she shouldn't.
Didn't the Romulan kind of make clear that the whole like getting rid of Khan would eliminate the coming together of the humanity, and that the
Why
Federation...
is she listening to a Romulan? Don't listen to the Romulans. They're evil.
It's a series of events, right? The eugenics wars leading into World War III, leading into contact with the Vulcans eventually, and so if those things don't happen, then so it isn't just about protecting herself.
Yeah, and plus, she fixed the timeline, and the little time devicey thing went from a red light to a green light. So she was like, "Oh, I guess I fixed it.
Time for me to leap home."
Time, yeah, exactly. Maybe the next jump will bring her home.
La'an never returned home. Yeah.
I don't understand.
I feel like this. It was like Quantum Leap because she was locked into the time, and then she was released when she fixed what she was supposed to.
So I just felt kind of unsatisfied. It's like I enjoyed the repartee between Kirk and La'an, but I felt like, okay, this is how I feel. You want to hear this is how I feel?
It was a lot of Ramon and no meat, no steak, no chicken, no protein,
no sauce,
no gravy.
Just plain noodles.
No, yeah.
Hey, this is my review. My turn. Right. So no, I it's like there was some good stuff, but it wasn't enough to make a meal. All the right ingredients,
It was just an appetizer, no main course.
I just felt like that, like, so for example, they spend so much time on the getting to Toronto and figuring out where they are and who they are, that it didn't leave a lot of time for that secondary character, which I thought was an interesting character, like the nerd, conspiracy nerd. And then before we really got to know her, then she was a Ramen spy, and I feel like that probably would have been better if it had been two different characters. The way that they had, and in the Future's End, they had the Sarah Silverman character, and then they had the bad guy, and I think something more along those lines. And there wasn't like a clear. She didn't feel like a threat the way that in a lot of these time travel episodes, the antagonist feels like a real threat. She was just kind of like, I'm just an agent with a gripe, but she sounded like she was old, but she looked young, and just in terms of that part of the episode, it didn't feel strong enough that I really cared, and so and them breaking into the thing wasn't that interesting. There wasn't anything new and interesting about that, and the thing about her having to decide to kill Khan or not, kind of fell flat. Don't get me wrong, I did not hate the episode. I just didn't love it. It was just like,
yeah, I understand what you. That's almost exactly how I feel. Like there were parts of it that I really liked, and there were parts of it that I was just like, meh.
Yeah, and I think that the fact that what made the episode was the fact that it was in Toronto. Although something about it being in Canada made me feel uncomfortable or something.
It's like Canada's lame. It's better. It's cooler when it's in America. That's what I always get from stuff. Is like Canada always feels like just America Junior.
It's like it's all right.
Oh, America Junior. It's finally our time to shine. We got to be in a Star Trek episode.
It's like politeness, Maple Leafs, Poutine. That's how Lon describes us. So
I know it's not very intriguing and exciting.
Did anyone think it was weird that Kirk hustles like $40-$50 Canadian for playing chess, and then they get this really sweet downtown spacious suite in a hotel, and I'm like, how much must this be a night? Like $600-$800? I don't know. And he has he got some 10s and 5s from the chess game from these old dudes in the park.
Right. Plus you need a credit card to get a hotel suite. You need a credit card to get an Airbnb.
I feel like we missed some deleted scenes where they got some, mugged somebody or stole their credit card. I don't know.
Well, that's kind of the other thing that I didn't like about the episode, and I was kind of hoping for a voyage home type thing where they get there and they're definitely fish out of water, and all the things that they expect to work don't. You know what I mean? And it could have been really, really hilarious, but they didn't do any of that, right? Like it would have been a really funny gag if they went to a hotel going we have all this Canadian money, and they're like, well, that's only $30. It's not gonna. You can get some lunch. That's about it. And then they end up sleeping in a car or something. There's a lot of opportunity for some really good humor, and they didn't do it, which really felt strange to me, right? Because it's obvious, right? Like that's the whole point of these stories, right? They go back in time, they don't know what the hell's going on, and there's real comedy there, but they didn't take advantage of that. So I really felt that, because I was missing that. I like those episodes where they do that.
Oh, but speaking of comedy, what about Carol Kane's scenes? I think she was a scene stealer in this myself. She was great.
Yeah, she was fine, but she's just Carol Kane being Carol Kane, right? She's fine.
Oh, she's a delight. I like how they went from the, it implied that she stole these artifacts from the archaeology department, like the Federation or some university, and it's some crappy antique store that she hand painted on a door. It's run down. It looks like Kid Khan wrote the archaeology department on that door.
Doesn't that mean that Pelias should remember La'an from the past?
No, because that's they hadn't fixed it yet. It wasn't until the light went green that they were back in the right track again. This goes back to the whole thing about Guinan not recognizing Picard in the timeline. It's the same kind of thing.
Yeah, I still think it could come back that she remembers him.
Because at this point, they're still at the point where it hasn't diverged yet because they haven't killed Khan like they wanted to. And if they had killed Khan, Pelia would remember her.
God. I feel like we need to draw some more diagrams on loose leaf like we did last season.
But this is like my thing, man.
but okay, I understand, but isn't so La'an fixed the timeline, which meant it didn't diverge, but everything up until that point was the same, right? Like the bridge still blew up and all that stuff, which means that they still had that conversation with Pelia, and then okay, all right, okay. Okay, we're getting too in the weeds. I understand. Yeah, it doesn't matter.
I love that line too, where she says, "It's like I know engineer." It's like I haven't taken a math class since Pythagoras made up the crap. I was like, that was great. Oh man, she has so many good lines. I really enjoyed her.
The big ending of the episode is that she decides not to kill Khan. I'm like, okay.
Decides not to kill today.
That was a big deal for her.
Yeah, but I never got the sense that she was ever going to kill Khan, right? She was never like, I'm gonna kill Khan, right?
Not so much that she was like, I want to kill Khan, but dealing with, she's still trying to come to terms with this, like the Scarlet Letter that she's been carrying forever, and here's the opportunity to like make that go away.
Right, and
even though it would be making herself go away, unless see that, which takes us back to our previous conversation about whether she is actually a direct descendant or whether she's some sort of like, because how?
She would have to be some sort of descendant, right? Like genetically, she would have to be. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe it's through marriage. Like maybe she's not actually. Maybe she was adopted. She could be adopted.
So the ending, she ends up back in the Enterprise. She fell in love for the first time, but now her lover's dead and back in time. And there is a time cop that tells her, don't tell anybody. And now she can't tell anybody. Which reminds me of that episode Clues from TNG when Data can't talk about the thing.
Mm-hmm.
So how do we feel about that ending? I didn't like it. How do you guys feel about it?
I felt bad for her. I felt bad for La'an. I was like, her heart was broken, and I felt a little heartbroken for her. And then she had that weird call with Real Kirk. We finally get to meet Real Kirk for a brief moment, and that was kind of awkward. Yeah, that was very awkward. I was like, why bother? It was like, was she checking to see if he was like remembered her? Like, if it's like, oh, is this my alt Kirk? Did he come back with me?
No, she's being creepy. She was just being creepy.
It was her be a little creepy, but still heartbroken. But I think they put the seeds of something that they'll pick up on later because I think Kirk's coming back again this season. I feel like he's a recurring guest star, so they'll probably maybe address that. Her feelings for him, and he's completely oblivious because he's never met her before.
By the way, that is a ridiculous romance. I like their chemistry, but now the whole thing is that Kirk's is gonna be boyfriend girlfriend with Khan's descendant. Like, what? No.
We're in reboot territory now. It doesn't matter. None of that matters.
I mean, I understood La'an. Like in that scene on the where she calls out Kirk. I thought that was a nice character moment for her, and you really get a sense of like how much she was hoping that relationship would turn into something, right? Because that other timeline Kirk didn't know who she was, like didn't know her name, kind of gave her all of this freedom, and all that stuff that she held as baggage was suddenly gone with him, and then he was gone, and she didn't get a chance to really tell him that she felt certain ways about him, love and such, and then so I get it, like she called him just to see his face one more time, but it is weird, but I totally understood it. It was a good ending. I like the ending.
Honestly, most of what Namir said is basically how I feel about it. I understand where she was coming from. I thought it was a really well done scene. Like I thought it was really quite moving, and Christina Chong was wonderful. I really think that Starfleet is like missing the boat on taking care of people that they put in these situations when they're just like, don't talk about it ever. Enjoy your trauma. Goodbye. Like that's, you'd think that they would have like someone pop in and follow up secretly, like, in 6 months and just make sure like, you okay? Everything cool? I don't know, because you can't talk about it to anybody. So, here's your chance if you need to
I'm traveling therapist.
Yeah, right. So yeah, aside from that, which is just an ongoing problem, yeah, I thought the ending was lovely.
Well, you guys saying all that makes me realize that what makes the whole episode work is the romance and relationship between Kirk and La'an. And I think I really connected with her character for the first time because she's kind of like a little bit off-putting. She's just like very aggressive and very like, I'm grumpy. And so, it's not like my favorite kind of person to hang around with. But, then you get to see the other part where she's like, she just wants to be loved. And somebody loves and accepts her. And you get to actually see that happening. And suddenly I really connected with her character for the first time. And I really believed the romance. So yeah, that part I understood and I got.
Yeah, no, it's the core of the episode. If that didn't work, nothing would have worked, right? Like the rest of it, I can ignore it, right? Because that relationship worked.
So I feel like we're ready for some ratings, unless Alan really wants to talk about Pelia some more.
No, I just thought that maybe that would come back in a future episode, that where she needs someone to talk to about it or approach, to talk about the feelings she has to hide from everyone else or the story of the events. Like she will be a confidant. She's like, you were there, you must remember this, and and she could be that shoulder to cry on or something. I don't know.
It might
be funny if you went.
They might have
talked to her and Pelia's like, I don't remember you.
I'm 20,000 years old. I've met so many people. You're not important to me. But Alan, I guarantee you that's not going to happen.
But how many times has she been approached by someone from the future says, I know who you are? And it's like, I feel like that event would stick with you even if you were like hundreds or thousands of years old.
I don't know. What if she gets approached by people all the time?
Really? Well, she gets approached by a lot of time travelers?
It could be. She's the only person that's, I don't know how many Lantanites there are.
It may become a thing or may not. I don't know. It'd just be nice if those two characters connected over
You know
her.
what? I think it should become a thing. I agree with you, but I don't think it will.
Because the green light, it happened before the green light. Timelines.
Yeah. I don't buy it. I need a diagram, Jenny. I need you to draw me something.
It's going to be a happy face with a bunch of squiggly lines, spaghetti. And then at the end, there's just like a finger at the end.
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about our ratings. Out of 10, let's start with Alan.
I started off with this one. I thought I was going to give it a little lower because it was like, But by the end of it, I had so much fun with this one. I decided I was going to give it a high mark of an 8. 8 out of 10 was what I have decided. Because I had a lot of fun with this. They had great chemistry. I laughed a lot. I was engaged the whole time. I enjoyed the storyline. I enjoyed the character development. And, La'an's a great character. And I'm glad they put the spotlight on her. So, it was a fun ride.
Yeah, I'm going to give it a 7. I was kind of waffling a little bit. But I did enjoy it because I liked the relationship. La'an was great. She's always great, and that relationship between her and Kirk was really well done. And the rest of it was kind of just fluff. So, but I enjoyed that part of it. So, yeah, I'm gonna give it a 7. I mean, really, I want to give it like a 6.75, but I don't think we're doing that, so I'll give it a 7.
Based on my slightly skewed system that I've already got going here, where everything is like, I really liked it. I liked even just what you were saying there, Lucas, about the how we really saw her or sorry, Kirk really saw her, but we did too, right? Like we also saw her for something other than what she's been presented so far. So I thought that was really great. It's funny, Namir, because I feel like this is actually an episode that I would rewatch because I like these are the kind of, I don't know, there's something like I'm talking too much. Point being, I'm gonna give it an 8.5.
I'm gonna give it a solid 6 because that's how I feel for all the aforementioned reasons that I'm not gonna go into detail like some people. Okay, so we're gonna be back.
Jaded.
We're gonna be back next week for more review of Star Trek: Strange New Worlds. Thank you for joining us, Jenny, Namir, Alan, and Lucas.
In quotes. I'm not really Lucas.
Yeah, you know, for the audio version, nobody can see you do that.
Are you a
right?
Romulan? He's a Romulan spy here to sabotage our timeline.
What's the next episode? What's the next? Does anybody know what's going on next week?
It's a Pike episode, I think. I think they go back to like Rigel, whatever it is, from the cage.
There's an away team, definitely.
Yeah, when he fights that guy with the crazy teeth in the cage. I think they go back to that planet.
They're remembering things. So they may not be there, but I think he's remembering. They're remembering trauma, but I think forgetting everything else.
Yeah, because if you remember in the cage, they're all like at the very beginning, they just got off that mission, and so many people are killed or injured, and like some people even had bandages and stuff in that show to show that they were just at a bad mission.
It sounds like a flashback episode.
It's basically Shades of Grey for the new generation.
Shades of
It's gonna
Grey.
be amazing.
Shades of crap.